Elena Vasquez stood in the center of the Grand Assembly Hall, surrounded by thousands of alien beings. The massive dome stretched high above her head, filled with floating platforms where representatives from across the galaxy watched her every move. She had been Earth's ambassador for 5 years, but today felt different. Today the air itself seemed heavy with danger. The Vorthon Prime Speaker rose from his crystal throne, his body glowing with pale blue light. He was tall, almost 3 meters high, with a form that looked like living glass. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the hall like the sound of breaking ice. "The Galactic Concordat recognizes the human delegation," he announced. "Ambassador Vasquez, you will hear the judgment of the Hegemony Council." Elena's heart began to race. A judgment meant serious trouble. The Hegemony was made up of the 12 most powerful species in the galaxy. When they made judgments, entire civilizations could disappear. Another figure stepped forward. This one was Korthak, with thick gray skin and 4 arms. Admiral Threnix had commanded fleets that destroyed rebel worlds. His deep voice rumbled across the hall. "Humans have been part of galactic society for 300 years, he began. "In that time, we have watched. We have studied. We have learned to fear what you might become." Elena felt cold sweat on her back, but she kept her face calm. Around the hall, alien delegates leaned forward to listen. Some looked curious, others seemed excited, as if watching a show. "Your species expands too quickly," Admiral Threnix continued. "You build colonies on worlds others consider impossible to live on. You adapt your technology faster than any species we have ever seen. Most dangerous of all, you fight wars among yourselves with a violence that disturbs peaceful civilizations." The Vorthon Prime Speaker activated a holographic display above the assembly. Images appeared in the air: human cities, spaceships, battles from Earth's history. Elena recognized scenes from the world wars, the colonial conflicts, even recent fights between mining companies in the outer colonies. "But we have discovered something even more troubling," the Prime Speaker said. His crystal form pulsed with brighter light. "Our intelligence services have intercepted communications about something called Project Lazarus. Humans are building weapons in secret. They are preparing for war." Elena's blood turned to ice. Project Lazarus was classified at the highest levels. How did the aliens know about it? "Therefore," Admiral Threnix announced, "the Hegemony Council delivers this ultimatum to the human species. You will surrender all military vessels to our custody. You will abandon all colonies beyond your home system. You will accept protective supervision under hegemony authority. You will submit to cultural integration programs designed to reduce your aggressive tendencies." The hall erupted in noise. Some aliens seemed shocked, others pleased. Elena heard cheering from several sections. She realized that many species wanted to see humanity brought down. "You have 7 days to accept these terms," the Prime Speaker concluded. "Refuse, and you will face the combined might of the hegemony. We have eliminated 12 species who posed similar threats to galactic peace. Humanity will not be the 13th. Elena stood alone in the center of the hall, feeling the weight of 3 billion human lives on her shoulders. She thought of her daughter Sarah, studying engineering on Mars. She thought of the farming colonies struggling to grow food on distant worlds. She thought of all the humans who had dreamed of living free among the stars. "The Terran Federation requests the traditional deliberation period," she said, her voice steady despite her fear. "We will give our answer in 7 days." "Granted," the Prime Speaker replied. "Use the time wisely, Ambassador. The hegemony's patience is not unlimited." As Elena left the assembly hall, she heard alien voices talking behind her. Most seemed certain that humanity would surrender. After all, what choice did they have? The hegemony controlled 70% of known space. Their fleets had never lost a war. Their technology was centuries ahead of human science. Elena walked quickly through the station corridors to her private communication room. Her hands shook as she activated the quantum transmitter. Within minutes, she was connected to the emergency session of the Terran Council on Earth. President Chen Wei appeared on the screen. his face grim. Around him sat the leaders of every human colony and military commander she could see. General Morrison from the Mars Defense Force, Admiral Torres from the Deep Space Fleet, Governor Walsh from the mining colonies. "We heard the broadcast," President Chen said. "The entire galaxy knows about the ultimatum now. Elena, tell us honestly, do we have any chance if we fight?" Elena closed her eyes and thought about the massive fleets she had seen in hegemony. Space. Ships the size of cities, weapons that could crack planets, soldiers bred for war from a dozen different species. "Mr. President," she said slowly, "if we fight with what we have now, we'll be destroyed in days. Maybe hours." Silence filled the room. She could see despair on many faces. Some of the colonial governors were already talking about surrender terms. Then, Admiral Torres spoke up. Elena had met her a few times, a tough woman with gray hair and scars from the Centauri border war. She commanded humanity's deep space forces, the ships that protected the outer colonies. "Mr. President," Admiral Torres said quietly, "perhaps it's time we showed them what humanity really built out in the dark." President Chen looked at her with surprise. "Sarah, what are you talking about?" "Project Lazarus isn't just about new weapons," the Admiral replied. "It's about survival. It's about making sure that if this day ever came, humanity would be ready." Elena felt a spark of hope. "Admiral, are you saying we have options?" Torres looked directly at the camera. "Ambassador, I'm saying that the aliens think they know what humanity can do. They think they've been watching us carefully for 300 years, but there are things in the dark spaces between stars that they never imagined." The room fell silent again, but this time it felt different. This time, Elena could sense possibility instead of despair. President Chen leaned forward. "How long do you need, Admiral?" 72 hours to get everyone in position," Torres replied. "After that, we give them our answer." "And if they attack before we're ready?" Governor Walsh asked. Torres smiled, and Elena saw something dangerous in that expression. "Governor, the aliens are about to learn something important about humans. We don't just prepare for the wars we're fighting. We prepare for the wars we hope we'll never have to fight." Elena felt her heart beating faster, but now it was excitement instead of fear. "What do you need me to do?" "Keep them talking," President Chen said. "Use every diplomatic trick you know. Make them think we're considering surrender. Buy us 3 days and then humanity gives its answer." "What answer is that, Mr. President?" Chen's face hardened. "The same answer humans have always given to bullies and tyrants throughout our history. No, we will not kneel. We will not surrender. We will not go quietly into slavery." The transmission ended, leaving Elena alone in her small room high above the alien world. Outside her window, she could see hegemony warships patrolling the space around the diplomatic station. Their lights looked like predators' eyes in the darkness. But for the first time since entering the assembly hall, Elena smiled. The aliens thought they knew humanity. They thought 300 years of watching had taught them everything about human nature. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Elena began composing her first diplomatic message, designed to buy time and hide the truth. Meanwhile, across human space, people began to move with quiet purpose. The galaxy was about to discover what humanity had been building in the shadows, waiting for the day when their freedom would be threatened. That day had finally come. Deep in the Hegemony Intelligence Center, Surveillance Chief Zirak watched the screens that monitored human communications across the galaxy. The insectoid aliens' compound eyes could process dozens of data streams at once, looking for signs of panic or military preparation. "What are the humans doing?" Admiral Threnix asked as he entered the command center. Zirak's mandibles clicked nervously. "That is the strange thing, Admiral. They are not behaving as expected." The screens showed human colonies across dozens of star systems, mining stations, research facilities, farming worlds, industrial complexes. Everything looked normal on the surface, but something felt wrong. "Show me the communication patterns," Threnix ordered. Zirak activated a new display. Immediately after the ultimatum, We detected a single transmission sent simultaneously to every human facility. It lasted only 2.3 seconds and contained minimal data, coordinates, and a timestamp. What coordinates? Unknown. The location is an empty space, far from any human colonies. The timestamp is for 72 hours from now. Threnix studied the data with growing concern. In his experience, doomed species reacted in predictable ways. They either surrendered immediately or began desperate military preparations that were easy to detect. The humans were doing neither. "Sir," another technician reported, "we are detecting unusual movement patterns. New screens activated showing human colonies. On the surface, everything appeared routine. But careful analysis revealed subtle changes. Families having quiet goodbye dinners, colonial militia conducting extra training exercises, deep space mining crews working around the clock, then suddenly shutting down operations. They are preparing for something," Threnix growled. "But what?" On the mining station, Titan's Hope, 3 billion kilometers from Earth. Supervisor Jake Martinez sealed the last container of processed metals. His crew had been working for 48 hours straight, finishing a project that had taken them 15 years to complete. "That's the last of it," his assistant Maria said, exhaustion clear in her voice. "The shipment is ready." Jake looked out the window at the massive ring of metal structures surrounding the asteroid they had been mining. To casual observers, it looked like standard mining equipment. But Jake knew better. His father had helped design these installations, and his grandfather had been part of the original planning committee 50 years ago. "Maria, I need you to take the shuttle back to Ceres Station," Jake said. "Take the non-essential crew with you." "What about you?" Jake smiled sadly. "Someone needs to stay and run the equipment when the time comes. My family has been preparing for this day since before I was born. I'm not leaving now." Maria nodded. She had grown up on the mining stations too. Everyone knew what they were really building out here in the dark, even if they never talked about it openly. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Chen addressed the planet in what would be humanity's final official transmission before the deadline. Citizens gathered in their homes, on street corners, in schools and offices to listen. "My fellow humans," Chen began, 300 years ago, our species took its first steps into space. We went seeking knowledge, resources, and new homes for our growing population. We found wonder beyond imagination, strange worlds, beautiful, nebulae, and the discovery that we were not alone in the universe." He paused, looking directly into the camera. "We also found something else. We found that the galaxy is ruled by fear. Fear of change, fear of competition, fear of species that might grow strong enough to challenge the established order. Across human space, people listened with growing understanding. Children who had wondered why their parents worked such long hours on mysterious projects. Teenagers who had questioned why human colonies were built like fortresses. Adults who had always sensed that their leaders were preparing for something terrible. Today, the hegemony demands our surrender," Chen continued. "They want us to abandon our colonies, disarm our ships, and accept their control over our future. They believe we are too dangerous to remain free." On Mars, Chen's daughter Sarah watched with her engineering classmates. She had always been proud of her father, but now she understood why he had always seemed burdened by secrets. "We came to the stars as explorers, not conquerors," Chen said. "We sought friendship among the cosmos and found bureaucracy, fear, and the threat of extinction. But our ancestors taught us something important about dealing with bullies and tyrants." In the Hegemony Intelligence Center, Zirak translated the speech for Admiral Threnix in real time. The Admiral's 4 hands clenched into fists as he listened. "The human is making a mistake," Threnix said. "Does he not understand the power arrayed against him?" Zirak continued translating as President Chen reached the climax of his speech. "Today, humanity gives its answer to those who would chain us," Chen announced. "We are not your subjects. We are not your servants. We are not afraid." The transmission ended with 5 words that would echo through galactic history. "Humanity says no. Show them." Immediately, human communication networks went dark. Every official channel, every military frequency, Every colonial broadcast stopped transmitting. The galaxy suddenly could not hear humanity's voice at all. What just happened? Admiral Threnix demanded. Zirak's mandibles clicked rapidly as he tried to make sense of the data. Sir, all human communications have ceased. They have activated some kind of total communication blackout. Are they surrendering? Unknown, sir. We cannot detect any surrender signals, but we also cannot detect any military preparations. Threnix felt the first stirrings of unease. The humans were not behaving like any species he had encountered before. Most civilizations faced with impossible odds either submitted immediately or fought desperately with everything they had. The humans seemed to be doing something else entirely. In the deep spaces between stars, far from any inhabited system, ancient machinery began to wake up. Structures built over decades in the darkness, hidden from sensors and spy networks, started receiving the signal they had waited 50 years to hear. Admiral Sarah Torres stood on the bridge of a ship that did not officially exist. The Terran Sovereign was humanity's greatest secret, built in a construction facility that had been disguised as a failed mining operation for 3 decades. At 35 kilometers long, it was larger than many moons and packed with weapons that combined human engineering with technologies borrowed, stolen, or captured from a dozen different species. Admiral, her communications officer reported, "We are receiving responses from all units. The fleet is assembling." Torres looked at the tactical display as ships began appearing on the sensors. Vessels that had been built in secret shipyards, hidden in asteroid fields and nebulae. Colony ships converted into mobile weapons platforms. Research vessels disguised as scientific expeditions but armed with experimental weapons. Deep space mining rigs that were actually massive railgun installations. For 50 years, humanity had been preparing for this day. Every major construction project had served dual purposes. Every scientific expedition had scouted potential battlegrounds. Every mining operation had built weapons disguised as industrial equipment. "How many ships do we have, Admiral?" her tactical officer asked. Torres smiled as the numbers updated on her screen. "More than the galaxy thinks we can build. More than our enemies believe we possess. Enough to make sure humanity never kneels to anyone." The fleet that was assembling in the darkness represented the work of 3 generations. Parents who had sacrificed comfortable lives to work on classified projects their children would never know about. Engineers who had spent their careers designing ships that might never be used. Miners who had built weapons instead of just extracting resources. "Send the signal to all units," Torres ordered. "Operation Lazarus is now active. All ships prepare for quantum jump to Sol system." As the human fleet prepared to emerge from the darkness where it had waited for decades, the hegemony forces continued their preparations around Earth. They still believed they were facing a desperate, outgunned enemy that would soon surrender, or be quickly destroyed. They had no idea that humanity's real response to their ultimatum was already on its way. The galaxy was about to discover what humans had been building, while everyone else thought they were just mining asteroids and conducting research. The hegemony had demanded surrender, but they were about to receive something entirely different. They were about to meet the full power of human preparation, determination, and the will to remain free. Fleet Admiral Cathara stood on the bridge of the Sovereign Destiny, watching Earth turn slowly in the darkness. The massive Dreadnought was the pride of the hegemony fleet. 30 kilometers of advanced technology and enough firepower to destroy planets. Around it, over 300 warships from 12 different species waited in perfect formation. "Status report," she ordered, her crystalline Vorthan body glowing with confidence. "All ships report ready, Admiral," her tactical officer replied. "Long-range sensors show minimal human military activity. Their deep space fleet appears to be scattered across their colonies, exactly as intelligence predicted." Cathara nodded with satisfaction. The humans had played right into hegemony expectations. Their forces were spread thin. Their largest ships were converted civilian vessels, and their technology was decades behind hegemony standards. This would be over quickly. "Admiral," the communications officer announced, "we are receiving the final human response." Elena Vasquez appeared on the main screen from the diplomatic station. She looked tired and defeated, which pleased Cathara. The human ambassador would officially announce their surrender, and galactic order would be maintained. Fleet Admiral. Kithara, Elena began. I have been authorized by the Terran Federation to deliver our final answer to the Hegemony Ultimatum. Proceed, Kithara replied, already preparing the orders for occupation forces. Elena straightened her shoulders and looked directly into the camera. The Terran Federation rejects your ultimatum in its entirety. We will not surrender our colonies. We will not disarm our ships. We will not accept your authority over our people. Surprised murmurs rippled across the bridge. Kithara felt her first moment of doubt. Ambassador, you understand the consequences of this decision? We understand perfectly, Elena replied. Humanity chooses to remain free, whatever the cost. The transmission ended, leaving the Hegemony fleet in stunned silence. Kithara had expected surrender. Military planning had focused on occupation procedures, not actual combat. Admiral, the sensor operator called out, I'm detecting quantum signatures. Something large is approaching. Kithara moved to the sensor station. Show me. The display activated, showing space around the Sol system. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then reality began to tear open. The first ship that emerged was unlike anything in the Hegemony databases. Nearly 30 kilometers long, covered in weapons that combined human design with alien technology in ways that should have been impossible. Its hull showed signs of decades of construction, modifications, and improvements. What is that? Kithara whispered. Before anyone could answer, another ship appeared. Then another. Within minutes, space around the Hegemony fleet filled with human vessels emerging from quantum jumps. But these were not the desperate civilian conversions intelligence had predicted. Admiral, the tactical officer shouted. I count over 200 vessels. Mass readings indicate these are capital ships, not converted transports. Kithara stared at the displays in growing horror. The human ships were massive, heavily armed, and clearly built for war. Worse, they were emerging in perfect coordination, surrounding the Hegemony fleet with practiced precision. The largest human ship defied comprehension. Built around what appeared to be a captured asteroid, it stretched 35 kilometers from bow to stern. Launch bays covered its surface like cities, and weapon batteries that could level continents tracked across its hull. How? Kithara breathed. How did they build this? Where did they build this? Her intelligence officer ran frantic scans of the human vessels. Admiral, metallurgical analysis indicates construction times ranging from 20 to 70 years. Some of these ships have been under construction since before first contact. The terrible truth hit Kithara like a physical blow. Humanity had not just rejected the ultimatum. They had been expecting it. For decades, they had been preparing for this exact moment. A communication request came from the largest human ship. Kithara accepted it with shaking hands. Admiral Sarah Torres appeared on screen, standing on a bridge that looked like it belonged in a fortress rather than a ship. Behind her, human officers worked at stations while tactical displays showed the positions of every ship in both fleets. Fleet Admiral Kithara, Torres said calmly. I am Admiral Torres of the Terran Sovereign. You are surrounded and outgunned. Withdraw your forces immediately and no further blood need be shed today. Kithara found her voice. You cannot possibly match the Hegemony's firepower. Our technology is centuries ahead of yours. Torres smiled, and Kithara saw something dangerous in that expression. Admiral, your intelligence services have been watching us for 300 years, but they were watching the wrong things. What do you mean? You saw our mining operations and thought we were just digging for resources. You saw our research stations and thought we were just studying science. You saw our colony ships and thought we were just farmers and merchants. Torres gestured at the displays around her bridge. You never realized that every asteroid mining operation was also a weapons factory. Every research station was also a military laboratory. Every colony ship was also a warship in disguise. Kithara ran new scans of the human fleet, and her worst fears were confirmed. The ships showed signs of modular construction, as if they had been built to serve multiple purposes. What looked like cargo bays were actually weapon magazines. What appeared to be mining equipment were actually gun batteries. For 70 years, Torres continued, humanity has been building this fleet. We hoped we would never need it. But we knew that someday, someone would try to make us kneel. Today is that day. You're bluffing, Kythera said desperately. No species could hide construction on this scale. Torres activated a new display showing the human fleet in full tactical formation. Admiral, we didn't hide it. We built it right, in front of you. Your spies reported exactly what they saw: mining operations, research facilities, colony construction. They just never imagined that humans could build weapons and homes with the same materials. Kythera's tactical officer whispered urgent reports in her ear. The human formation was perfect, their ships positioned to create overlapping fields of fire. Worse, long-range scans were detecting more human installations throughout the Sol system. What intelligence had dismissed as civilian infrastructure was revealing weapon signatures. Last chance, Admiral, Torres said. Withdraw now and tell the hegemony that humanity will defend itself. Continue this attack and discover what we built while you weren't paying attention. For a moment, Kythera considered retreat. The smart tactical move would be to withdraw and call for reinforcements. But she commanded the pride of the hegemony fleet, and 300 years of naval tradition demanded she fight. All ships, she ordered on the fleet frequency, prepare for battle. Show these primitives the power of true galactic civilization. Torres sighed as she watched the hegemony ships power their weapons. So be it. All ships, this is Admiral Torres. The enemy has chosen war. Defend your homes, protect your families, and show the galaxy that humanity bows to no one. The space around Earth erupted in fire. The hegemony opened with their most powerful weapons: quantum lances that could crack planets and antimatter torpedoes that could destroy moons. The attack should have shattered the human fleet in seconds. Instead, the human ships absorbed the damage and returned fire with weapons that made no sense. Railguns that fired projectiles at relativistic speeds. Energy beams that tore through shields like paper. Missile swarms that seemed to think for themselves. Impossible, Kythera shouted as her flagship shuddered under human fire. Where did they get this technology? Her science officer provided the answer that changed everything. Admiral, analysis shows these weapons combine technologies from dozens of different species. They have been collecting, stealing, and reverse engineering alien technology for decades. Kythera realized the horrible truth. Every diplomatic mission, every trade agreement, every cultural exchange had been an opportunity for humans to study and copy advanced technology. They had not just built a fleet in secret, they had armed it with the best weapons from across the galaxy. The battle raged around Earth as two very different philosophies of warfare clashed. The hegemony fought with discipline and superior technology. The humans fought with desperation and innovation. And slowly, impossibly, the humans began to win. The galaxy watched in shock as the invincible hegemony fleet found itself outmaneuvered by enemies they had dismissed as primitive. The war for humanity's freedom had begun, and the outcome was far from certain. The battle for Earth exploded across space in ways that defied every tactical manual in the hegemony fleet. Admiral Torres had not been lying when she said humans fought differently. Captain Vex of the Korthak heavy cruiser Dominion watched in horror as a human destroyer, its hull cracked open and venting atmosphere, altered course directly toward his ship. The human vessel was clearly dying, but it was accelerating instead of retreating. "They're ramming us," his tactical officer screamed. "Evasive maneuvers," Vex ordered, but it was too late. The human ship struck the Dominion's midship section with the force of a small asteroid. Both vessels exploded in a ball of fire and debris. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out as human ships engaged in tactics that no sane species would attempt. They used their own vessels as weapons, ramming enemy ships when their guns ran out of ammunition. They flew through debris fields that would destroy normal ships, using the wreckage as cover while they repaired battle damage. Fleet Admiral Kythera watched from the bridge of the Sovereign Destiny as her careful battle plan fell apart. Status. Report. "We've lost 47 ships," her tactical officer reported, his voice shaking. "The humans have lost 32, but they're not fighting like any fleet we've encountered before." Kythera studied the tactical display. The human formation had scattered into what looked like chaos, but she was beginning to see the pattern. They were using Earth's asteroid belt as a massive weapons platform, drawing hegemony ships into carefully prepared kill zones. "Sir," the sensor operator called out, "I'm detecting new energy signatures from the outer system." On the display, installations that intelligence had marked as simple mining operations began lighting up with massive power readings. What they had thought were asteroid mining rigs revealed themselves as something far more dangerous. The first railgun fired from Ceres Station, sending a projectile the size of a transport ship racing across the solar system at 12%, the speed of light. It struck a hegemony battlecruiser amidships, tearing through its shields and armor like they were paper. "Impossible," Kythera whispered as more installations throughout the asteroid belt opened fire. "How long have they been building this?" Her intelligence chief provided the answer she dreaded. "Admiral, construction analysis suggests these installations are at least 50 years old. The humans have turned their entire star system into a fortress." The space around Earth became a nightmare of crossfire as hidden weapons revealed themselves throughout the Sol system. Mining stations fired railguns that could destroy capital ships with single shots. Research facilities launched swarms of missiles that hunted enemy vessels with deadly intelligence. Even civilian habitats sprouted defensive weapons that had been built into their very foundations. But the hegemony was not helpless. Their ships were more advanced, their crews better trained, and their commanders more experienced. Fleet Admiral Kythera rallied her forces for a concentrated attack on the largest human vessel. "All ships, focus fire on their flagship," she ordered. "Destroy their command ship and their fleet will collapse." The Sovereign Destiny led the charge against Admiral Torres's command vessel, the Terran Sovereign. The two massive dreadnoughts closed distance while trading devastating fire. Quantum lances met experimental energy weapons in exchanges that lit up space like new stars. On the bridge of the Terran Sovereign, Admiral Torres felt her ship shake under the enemy bombardment. "Damage report!" "Forward shields down to 30%, her tactical officer called out. "We've lost 2 weapon batteries and have hull breaches on decks 15 through 20. Torres studied her tactical display. The hegemony flagship was powerful, but it was fighting according to standard doctrine. It maintained safe distance while using its superior weapons to wear down the human ship. Torres had a different approach in mind. "All power to engines," she ordered. "Prepare ramming speed." "Admiral?" her first officer asked in surprise. "The aliens think they know how we fight," Torres said with a grim smile. "Let's show them they're wrong." The Terran Sovereign suddenly accelerated directly toward the Sovereign Destiny, closing the distance at maximum speed. Kythera watched in shock as the massive human ship bore down on her flagship. "They're insane!" she shouted. "Ramming at this velocity will destroy both ships." But Torres had no intention of ramming. At the last possible moment, the Terran Sovereign rolled sideways and fired every weapon it had into the Sovereign Destiny's hull at point-blank range. The concentrated firepower tore through shields and armor that had never been breached before. "Return fire," Kythera ordered, but the damage was already done. Her flagship was crippled, its main weapons offline and its engines damaged. The battle raged for 18 hours. The hegemony had superior technology and numbers, but the humans fought with a combination of desperation, innovation, and sheer bloody-minded determination that shocked their enemies. They used tactics that violated every rule of civilized warfare, ramming attacks, kamikaze runs, using their own damaged ships as guided missiles. More importantly, they had prepared for this battle in ways the hegemony could not have imagined. Every piece of civilian infrastructure in the Sol system served dual purposes: cargo containers that were actually missile launchers, communication satellites that were really sensor networks, transport ships that were secretly armed with experimental weapons. Captain Zorix of the hegemony light cruiser Eternal watched a human cargo hauler approaching his position. The vessel showed no weapons on scans and was broadcasting a surrender signal. Following standard procedure, he moved to accept the surrender. "Sir," his tactical officer warned, "I'm detecting unusual energy signatures from that cargo ship." "It's a civilian vessel," Zorix replied. "Prepare a boarding party." The cargo ship exploded without warning, taking the Eternal with it in a blast that could be seen from Earth. In the wreckage, investigators would later find that the entire ship had been packed with experimental explosives disguised as normal cargo. As the battle continued, it became clear that humanity had been preparing for this war longer and more thoroughly than anyone had imagined. They had studied every hegemony battle in recorded history. They had analyzed alien tactics and developed counters for standard strategies. They had built weapons specifically designed to exploit weaknesses in hegemony ship designs. Admiral, Kythera's science officer, reported during a brief lull in the fighting, "I've been analyzing their weapons. They're not just human technology. These systems incorporate design elements from dozens of species." Kythera felt sick as she understood. For centuries, humans had been quietly collecting alien technology through trade, diplomacy, and espionage. Every cultural exchange had been an opportunity to study advanced systems. Every diplomatic mission had included intelligence operatives gathering technical data. The humans had not just built a secret fleet, they had armed it with the best technology from across the galaxy. The tide of battle turned when the hidden installations in the outer system activated their full firepower. What the hegemony had thought were simple mining operations revealed themselves as massive weapons platforms built into asteroids and hidden in nebulae. Crossfire from 6 different directions caught the hegemony fleet in a carefully planned trap. Ships that had fought their way through the inner system defenses found themselves under attack from weapons they had not even known existed. "We're surrounded," Kythera's tactical officer reported. "Enemy fire is coming from installations throughout the system. We're taking casualties from positions we can't even see." Kythera realized the horrible truth. The humans had not just prepared for this battle, they had designed the entire Sol system as one massive weapons platform. Every asteroid, every station, every seemingly innocent installation was part of a coordinated defense network that had taken decades to complete. As hegemony ships began retreating toward the edge of the system, Admiral Torres opened a communication channel to all surviving enemy vessels. "Hegemony forces," she announced, "you came here to make us surrender. Instead, you found out what humans do when threatened with extinction. This is your only warning. Leave now, and spread the word throughout the galaxy. Humanity stands free, and we will remain free." Fleet Admiral Kythera, her flagship crippled and her fleet shattered, made the hardest decision of her military career. "All ships, begin withdrawal from the Sol system. Emergency jump to Rally Point 7. As the surviving hegemony vessels limped away from Earth, they left behind nearly half their fleet destroyed or captured. The invincible war machine that had conquered dozens of species had been defeated by enemies they had dismissed as primitive. The galaxy received Admiral Torres's final transmission as the human fleet tended to its wounds. "Let it be known that humanity stands free. We sought peace, but we prepared for war. Any who would enslave us will find the same welcome that awaited the hegemony today." The age of hegemony dominance was over. The age of human power had begun. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, the galaxy was a very different place. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked through the Grand Assembly Hall where she had once received humanity's death sentence. Now alien delegates stood when she entered the chamber. The same beings who had watched with pleasure as the hegemony delivered their ultimatum now treated her with careful respect. The hegemony itself was crumbling. 3 member species had declared independence in the weeks following their devastating defeat. Others questioned why they should follow leaders who had led them into such a catastrophic war. The Vorthon Prime Speaker, who had once spoken with such confidence about human submission, now avoided direct eye contact when Elena addressed the assembly. "The Terran Federation wishes to address the Concordat," Elena announced, her voice carrying easily through the vast chamber. "The assembly recognizes the human delegation," the Prime Speaker replied, his crystal form dimmer than before. Elena looked around the hall at thousands of alien faces. Some showed fear, others curiosity, but none showed the dismissive contempt she had faced 6 months ago. Humanity had earned their attention with blood and fire. "The Terran Federation proposes the establishment of the Free Species Compact," she began, "an alliance of independent civilizations committed to mutual defense against tyranny. Excited whispers filled the chamber. Several species had already approached Elena privately about such an alliance. The defeat of the hegemony had shown that even the most powerful empires could be challenged. On Earth, President Chen addressed a joint session of the reformed Galactic Concordat via holographic link. The chamber where he spoke was new, built to replace the government buildings destroyed during the battle. Through the windows behind him, construction crews worked to repair the damage from hegemony bombardment. The Terran Federation does not seek to replace the hegemony as galactic overlords, Chen said, his words translated into hundreds of languages. We seek something better, a galaxy where strength protects the weak instead of enslaving them. The response was immediate and powerful. Representatives from 47 different species requested membership in the new alliance. Some were small civilizations that had lived in fear of hegemony expansion. Others were former hegemony members seeking new protection. A few were powerful species that had remained neutral, but now saw opportunity in the changing order. But the victory had come at a terrible cost. The secret construction projects that enabled humanity's triumph had required enormous sacrifices from every human colony. Entire generations had grown up knowing their parents worked on projects they could never discuss. Resources that could have built comfortable cities went instead to hidden weapons factories and disguised military installations. On Mars, Sarah, Chen stood in the memorial garden dedicated to the thousands of humans who had died in the battle. Her father's decisions had saved humanity, but the weight of those choices was visible in his graying hair and tired eyes. Was it worth it? She asked him during one of his rare visits to the colony. President Chen looked at the names carved into the memorial wall. Sarah, your great-grandmother lived through World War III. She used to tell me that freedom isn't free. It has to be earned by every generation. But the cost. The cost of fighting was terrible, Chen agreed. But the cost of surrender would have been worse. The hegemony didn't just want to control us, they wanted to erase us, turn us into another subjugated species with no will of their own. Far from Earth, the Terran sovereign patrolled the trade routes between star systems. Admiral Torres had transformed her flagship from a weapon of war into a symbol of protection. The massive vessel served as a mobile embassy, its presence guaranteeing safe passage for merchant ships and refugees fleeing hegemony territory. Admiral, her communications officer reported, we're receiving a distress call from the Nexus system. Pirates are attacking civilian transports. Torres smiled grimly. In the old galaxy, such attacks were common and often ignored by major powers, but humanity had introduced a new philosophy of intervention. Set course for Nexus, she ordered. It seems someone needs to learn that pirates are no longer welcome in civilized space. The Terran sovereign's arrival in the Nexus system demonstrated why piracy had become a dangerous profession. The raiders found themselves facing weapons that could destroy their ships from distances they had thought safe, deployed by a crew that fought with the same desperate innovation that had defeated the hegemony. Within hours, the surviving pirates were fleeing toward the galactic rim, carrying word that human protection was not just a promise, it was a guarantee backed by overwhelming force. But humanity's greatest achievement was not military. In hidden shipyards throughout their territory, new classes of vessels took shape. These were not weapons of war, but ships designed to explore, to build, to protect. Colony ships that could establish new worlds in months instead of years. Hospital ships that brought advanced medical care to species that had never imagined such treatment. Research vessels that shared scientific discoveries freely instead of hoarding them. The galaxy watched in amazement as humanity used their military victory to build something unprecedented, an empire based on protection instead of conquest. On a small world in the former hegemony territory, Governor Maria Santos oversaw the evacuation of a species facing extinction from a dying star. The refugee fleet that humanity provided was larger than the entire space force the aliens had possessed. "Why do you help us?" asked the alien leader, a being whose crystalline form reminded Maria of the Vorthan Prime speaker. "We cannot repay such generosity." Maria smiled as she watched human and alien children playing together in the refugee camps. "Because someone needs to prove that the strong can protect the weak instead of enslaving them. because this galaxy has seen enough tyranny and fear. The transformation was not limited to military affairs. Human technology, developed in secret for decades, began flowing to allied species. Medical advances that could extend lifespans by centuries, agricultural techniques that could make barren worlds bloom with life, educational systems that encouraged innovation instead of conformity. But perhaps the most important change was philosophical. For thousands of years, galactic civilization had been based on hierarchy and control. The hegemony and similar powers maintained order through fear and overwhelming force. Humanity introduced a radical concept that civilizations could cooperate without one dominating the others. The Free Species Compact grew rapidly, but not through conquest or coercion. Species joined because they saw the benefits of alliance with equals rather than submission to superiors. They contributed their unique strengths to the common defense while maintaining their independence and cultures. In the depths of space, human shipyards continued their work. The fleet that had emerged to face the hegemony was only the beginning. New classes of vessels incorporated lessons learned from the battle and technologies shared by allied species. More importantly, they were designed with a new philosophy: weapons that protected rather than conquered, strength that served rather than dominated. Admiral Torres stood on the bridge of the Terran Sovereign, watching a convoy of refugee ships from 3 different species traveling under human protection. Once, such a sight would have been impossible. Different species feared and distrusted each other, and major powers used that fear to maintain control. "Admiral," her first officer reported, "long-range sensors are detecting hegemony remnant forces moving toward the Arcturus sector. They appear to be targeting independent colonies." Torres nodded. "Signal the fleet. It's time to remind the galaxy that tyranny has consequences." As the human fleet moved to intercept the raiders, Torres reflected on how much had changed. 6 months ago, humanity had been a minor species facing extinction. Now they were the guardians of galactic freedom, protectors of the weak and champions of justice. The galaxy would never be the same. The age of empires built on fear was ending. The age of alliances built on hope had begun. Elena Vasquez concluded her address to the Galactic Concordat with words that would be remembered for generations. "The Terran Federation makes this promise to all civilizations. We will not conquer you, we will not rule you, but we will protect you. Freedom has guardians now, and they will not be moved." The assembly erupted in applause that lasted for nearly an hour. Species that had lived in fear for millennia finally dared to hope for something better. The galaxy was entering a new era, built on the foundation of humanity's greatest victory, the day they said no to an ultimatum and backed their refusal with fire and steel. In the darkness between stars, human shipyards worked around the clock, building not just ships but a future where strength served justice and power protected the innocent. The age of human expansion had begun, and with it, a new hope for peace among the stars. Humanity had kept their promise. They had shown the galaxy what they were truly capable of building in the dark, and they would never stop building, never stop protecting, never stop proving that freedom was worth any sacrifice. The stars themselves bore witness. Humanity stood ready, and tyranny would never again go unchallenged among the infinite cosmos.